real skills. And without their skills and your ability to work with them, you can be successful in small niche stuff. You really can. I disagree with Skeeter about the black and white and 5e, but I think that there's places for that. But to actually get noticed and be there, you need to have the kind of artists that work. And I'm going to say one thing that I think it's a little bit higher than the entry level stuff. But if you don't have an art director, you're crazy, because art direction is a whole task on itself. And if you would know somebody who actually, you work with somebody who understands art, who sits there and can frame the art. And if I make a cover request, knowing that the cover is going to be on top of the page and there's not a great big tentacle going right through the cover. And just the little things at first, but also somebody who understands that it changes your life. And I have that, right? And Jim Wampler actually taught me the value of that. And seeing that every day, know that even a media publisher, we have a full-time art direction, right? We don't pay him like a full-time person, but he's there full-time. But he, without understanding the importance of it and all that, there are people there who do understand that. There are people there who do want to help you. And if you've never purchased a piece of art and you're making something, you can find me on the socials. I can tell you the 3 things I'm going to repeat right now, but I will tell you a little more in depth. Bullet points. Give the artist more room than you think you want to give them, because they will do better than you can imagine in your mind, because they spend all day visualizing stuff and making it happen. So trust your artists, make sure you pay them appropriately. And if you have the ability, talk to somebody who actually does layout and art direction. I think it makes a big difference. That's my first 2 cents.
Well, we're going to move directly to art direction with Mr. Jim Wampler, because he has done a lot of this, and he's doing it in a production format with his zine Scientific Barbarian, which is in its Kickstarter for its 3rd issue right now. So whatever he's doing, he's killing it. Jim Wampler, tell us about art direction.
Bless you. My brother always climbs my ass when I don't pimp my own stuff. One thing Zach said, anybody,
look at Luke.
Look at that.
Luke's the man.
Yeah,
and he didn't pay me to say that. Much.
Well, no, he's a lieutenant colonel, so it's one of these. Yes, sir. One thing Zach said, it's a common thing for non-artist people to try and calculate a per hour value to art. How long did it take you to do that? And the answer I learned in art school was my whole life. So that's the artist's point of view. But art direction is important because there's no more golden rule in publishing than the cover sells the book and the content sells the next book. And so the art is key to everything. I mean, the writing and the content is important, and you can't succeed without it, but you've got to have the art. And I did the same thing everybody who gets into this does, especially the artists. You start out as a contributor, and you have that idea, when it's my turn, I'm going to be a better boss than I've been bossed and all this stuff. It's a lot harder when you get in the seat. The main rules are just hire good people, pay them on time, and trust them. Beyond that, my best experience has been with spending some time with each artist and each contributor to get a quick feel for what level and type of art direction they require. I'm an artist, so I can speak. We're flakier than writers, so it's worth my while as a publisher to learn that Doug Kovacs does not need art direction. He needs a general idea. He runs off and does his Doug Kovacs thing, and you thank him for what you get in the end. And 99.9% of the time, it's better than what you wanted.
Definitely.
Peter Mullen did a cover for an adventure I wrote, and ignored the art direction and put a completely different creature as a mount. And it was better than what I wrote. So I went back and rewrote my text to match his art. So just a lot of trust and respect. I can't tell you how good an art director I am. That you need to ask that question to artists that work with me.
So we're gonna skip over to Wonky here for a minute, because I'm gonna share some art and tell a little bit of a story, and then Keelan is gonna talk. So I am going to share this. So this was a piece of art that Keelan sent me, as a piece in a group of other things, just as fill-in. And he sent it to me and he was like, hey, I had some time. I did this. Maybe you can use it as a flyer or something. And I started sharing it to other people and showing them. And they were like, holy shit, you need to make this the cover of your book. And I'm like, well, I've got a cover. I can't do that. This needs to be a hardback. And I was like, okay, well, how about it becomes the special edition cover of the book? And this was just like a thing. I don't know how much time he spent on it. I can't even imagine. Keelan, you can talk more to that, but when you have faith in artists, they will impress you. And that is basically what put my books on the map, was this cover. I mean, it was just amazing and far more than I asked for. So I will be indebted to the Wonky forever for doing this. So Keelan, talk about some art.
Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate the kind words. With that cover specifically, this is a weird situation where I just had an overwhelming passion for that module. I got to play in it with you at North Texas, and ever since then, it kind of, I've probably ran Crypt of the Science Wizard, I'd say well over 10 times for various groups of people. And so I really knew, and I had so much passion for that module as it was. And so when you said you were releasing it for Dungeon Crawl Classics, Mutant Crawl Classics, I just knew it. It was one of those, a call to the soul. It was, I just had to do this. I had this great vision, and, I have all sorts of almost fan fiction about the Black Tower and Corsetti and all that jazz. Like, I love the little mythos you created there. And so getting to put my own little spin on it, I guess, with that cover, well, what ended up becoming a cover, it was rewarding to the soul, for lack of a better terms. It reminded me of like, hey, this is why you're being an artist. You get to make really cool stuff for, a cool industry and cool things. And yeah, that wasn't very well worded, but that's kind of how it ended up happening. Was I did have a little extra time and I wanted to run with it and see just kind of where the imagination took me, and ended up being kind of useful.
That is awesome. I'm going to jump over to Ed now, because I had another book that just kickstarted, Crypto Codex. That was a book of monsters. And I had wanted to work with Ed for a while, and we finally got stuff figured out. So I started sending Ed some art notes, and I am not an art notes kind of guy. So Ed, please describe your thoughts when you got my asks for the elephants and the dinosaurs and the titans.
I didn't mind at all. It's the fact that you had them. You expected to have all those images on one sheet of 9.5, not 9 by 12 pieces of paper. I think you had it on 3 sheets of paper of 16 images, and that's not going to work.
Who's stupid?
It's all learning. I mean, well, that's the part about being an artist, is you have to learn. Like Jim said, was talking about being an art director. On the other hand, the artist also has to learn what the client wants. Like when I work with Jim, I know now with Jim, if I just have him draw a little stick figure and give me the layout, that I can draw what he wants.
So then, this is what Ed put together that I wanted.
And then I know working with Skeeter's just kind of flying by the seat of his pants. He's like, I kind of want this and I kind of want that. And I'll show some sketches and then I can do it. And then of course, working with Levi Coombs is a little in between too, because he'll have a little bit more art direction. And then there's some people that will just like, whatever you come up with, I trust you. And they just put it in there. And I would say as a small publisher and you need your art, I would say you need to know what your budget is for art. So if you do have that one artist that you want to have in your book so badly, but their prices might be a little bit higher than you wanted to pay, if you know what your budget is, you might be able to work out with that artist that they might take a little less money than they would be normally, because they want to work with you or they want to be published in your book. And that way you just both don't walk away from the table like, well, because you didn't know how much money you wanted to spend. If you know how much money you want to spend, you're like, well, I realized that you're charging $60 for each 9.5, 9x12, images, but I was hoping that we could kind of get them around maybe, 50 or so. And then, the artist might say, oh yeah, I could take a $10 hit and get you your black and whites. So.
And speaking of prices for their artwork, let's move on to Alyssa Fadden, who has flat out told me, no, she's not going to work with me. So Alyssa, talk about some cartography.
I think my exact words to you, Skeeter, were, you can't afford me.
And that is not even a joke.
Well, I don't know really the best way to approach this. Every artist is going to have their own particular model, and I consider myself to be a little bit unique in some ways, just because of the people I do work with, several here. And my current way of doing business is not the way that I would encourage other people to do it, because I've managed to get to a point where I'm like, what do you need, Luke? Sure, I'll do it. And we'll worry about cost, if anything, later on. I tend to do that with a small circle of who I consider to be professional friends. And I think that's a good position to be in. But, generally, I will say this, my artwork is a little bit different than my esteemed Ed and Keelan here, in that I am doing maps. My questions are going to be different for my clients, and probably my work effort and my considerations are going to be different as a cartographer. And I think, though, there are some common things between us that I think then goes back to a small publisher. And I have been a small publisher, and I have worked with artists, and I didn't have an art director. But I will say, from the other side of the fence as a cartographer, that there are certain questions that you should be expecting to get out of your artist. And I'm not only just asking about the project, but I'm going to ask you, what is the final print size? How are you using this? Full color, black or white, obviously. Is there a particular DPI you need? I'll probe about the project. I will start to ask, do you need crop room on it? Because it's surprising how many people aren't thinking about that. And I will outright ask nowadays, have you got a budget in mind? It's not a rude question. It's a relevant question. Because if my map is, for the sake of argument, I'm just like, if the project we're talking about is going to be a $2,000 project or whatever, and your budget is $100, well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about your needs and what can be done within the budget. Maybe there's a middle ground, or maybe there is someone else that can be recommended for it. And often it's just a disconnect between it. And I would say, as a small publisher, you should actually be looking for someone who's going to ask these questions. Because I've typically found on both sides of the fence, the people who aren't thinking along those lines, especially if both people aren't thinking along those lines, the project is going to start to run into problems. You're going to get something back that's too big, too small, not at the right DPI. And I'm not even talking about, if it fits within context or not. It's just that there will be a mass of miscommunication between them. And I haven't really even got into the pricing structure. I mean, my pricing structure alone, I at the end of the day, I've learned how much I can get done within X amount of hours. And I have, let's say, 4 pricing models. I have a small map, medium map, large map, and an oh my God map.
Teagle Manor?
Teagle Manor falls into the oh my God. But they all have a rough hour approximate rate. And I think Keelan and I even had a brief chat on this type of thing once, because he actually drew some things for me. And I was like, this is how I think about pricing. And that's how I tend to then translate this back when people sort of say, how much is this going to cost? I can give them a ballpark range, but only have to have asked them a series of questions about what it is they're actually after, Hey,
Alyssa, I don't mean to interrupt you, but can you explain to what DPI is or cropping? Because when you bring those up, and if you're brand new to publishing, you have no idea, like explain what they are real briefly. And can you explain where they could learn more, if you know?
For learning more, I mean, honestly, I'm just going to point to the internet on it. But
allow me to Google that for you.
Allow me to Google, yeah. But no, I mean, that's a really good question. So, let's start at a high level. And all small publishers should be thinking about this, because it could be the front of your book, right? And I don't want to talk for Ed or Jim or Keelan or anything like that. But if you've got a front of the book and someone's drawing something for that, it can be a map, anything. What is the print size of that? Now that's not, and I get this back a lot, by the way. Oh, you know, it's like letter sized. Okay. But what's the print size on that now, especially if it's a piece of artwork that's going in the center of a book? In fact, Luke and I actually had this back in Gary Con 12 Wiper Tear for my eye when I was drawing the map for the brochure. Because it was like, yes, you've got the brochure size, but then you've got a margin typically, because you're not doing edge-to-edge printing a lot of the time, especially as small publishers, right? There's going to be some kind of margin consideration. And potentially, if it's not going in a center spread, or even if it is, there might be an area where you can't actually see on the fold, like right in the margin there, right on the spine.
Yeah, the gutter. We had to account for the gutter. We had to account for the gutter in that one. That's right.
The gutter, right. So these are that then really determines your print size. And then it becomes a case of like the crop. The crop is like the you're going to take a picture. I'm going to use a map because that would be typically more cropped than others. And like the layout person is, even if you're doing it yourself at home in InDesign or something, you may actually find that you got it slightly wrong, or you actually need to fall outside of the print area a little bit, because something like drive-through, for example, they'll do like edge-to-edge printing, but they want to fall outside of the edge. So everything that falls outside of that actual printable area is known as the crop. And that means for me, and I've been stung by this, by the way, is when you're drawing a map or something, and like you're now assuming that it's going to fit perfectly in that printed space. And then the printer is going to come back and say, yeah, but actually we want to go beyond that. We actually want, and we need a 1/4 inch all the way around. And now I've got to actually start drawing pieces of a map that was never drawn originally, or I need to start blowing my map up larger. And now it's starting to cut off important things. So the crop space for me in my trade is the bit that I have to draw that may never actually see print. It's the bit that's going to be cut off to get the perfect fit within the print area available to it. And the DPI is dots per inch, literally how many printed dots are going to be in each inch of physical file space. And like I could work to the internet, by the way, is 72. It's really, really low. Typical print, more like 300, maybe 450, 600. And asking the client if they've got a particular need is important, because if I give a map at 72 DPI, that's 72 dots per inch. Not that I ever would, but if I did, and the printer prints it off at 300 DPI, that's a difference of like 4 times. My map that this is this big is actually going to print this big, or they're going to stretch it and it's just going to look absolutely terrible.
Very muddy.
Very muddy.
So Luke, you have a very unique position, other than who you are, of course, because you are a small publisher. You have written modules. Yep. You are also a convention director. You have requisitioned art for ads and displays and all kinds of stuff. What kind of things have you had to deal with when doing some of those various different projects?
Well, I would say that I'm maybe in a unique situation in that I have a lot of goodwill based upon my lineage. It's helped me out a bunch. Jim Wampler actually was very helpful to me in the early years of GaryCon. He stepped in and was like, "Hey, let me help you out here and do some good graphic work for you, help the artists." And so he taught me a little bit of what you need to do. But I find that by talking to the artist and writing them a paragraph, and then having maybe a phone call afterwards and go over and talk about what information they need. And then I have learned now, I pretty much say, this is what I have in mind, but I trust you as a professional to take my idea and to work with it. And you tell me, if you have some better ideas, come at me with a sketch or talk to me about it. And oftentimes these artists bring me something more than I had imagined, or a different angle or take on it that works very well. Rookie mistakes that I've made are, thinking, I'm going to use the same piece of art for a banner that you would for a t-shirt or a cover. Obviously you can't do that, right? But when you're a complete noob, like I was just walking into the industry, you don't realize that. But yeah, I've been very fortunate, and the advice that folks are giving now is important. Definitely, if you have access to somebody who knows artwork, or you have a friend who's in publishing and can give you those tips or point you in the right direction, an art director is a valuable function. Having someone who knows graphic art basics and marketing is important. You're absolutely right. Every time you post on the internet, whatever it may be, the symbols and stuff like that kind of represents your brand, represents who you are. Right. So hit or miss. And if you get people invested, like Keelan was talking about how much he loved Crypto the Science Wizard, and then he came up with this really cool cover, right? So taking time to know the artists, to get them involved and feel like they're invested in your project is worthwhile. And talking to them about what your world means, or I'm thinking, I've been lucky in that I worked with some great pros in the early days, like Jeff Easley knocked out a lot of Gary Kahn artwork, and Jeff Butler and Larry Elmore, right? So these guys, it's not like I needed to describe a whole lot of stuff to them, and they've known me for a lot of years. They have a pretty good amount of background. But I spoke to a brand new person for Gary Kahn 13, Michael Siragos. I've never met Michael in person, but he is really good. And I just, you guys probably know Michael, but I didn't know Michael at all. So I had no idea. I just put out hey, does someone want to do some art? And he came and he responded, and I was like, okay, this guy's pretty good. And yeah, he's been fantastic. And what a hardworking, humble guy who's willing to put a lot into the artwork. So I think finding the right person and cultivating the relationship with artists that you like is important as well. But yeah, and Alyssa has been very patient in dealing with me when I'm like, what? Huh? Yeah. So that's good. Don't be afraid to ask that question. If an artist asks you something for some information and you're not sure what it is, just be like, oh man, I don't really know what you're asking me for. So can you explain that? And of course, exhaust Google first or whatever. Don't make them explain simple things to you. Do a little bit of research, but just cultivating that friendship, explaining what the feeling that you're going for is, and making sure they understand that. They will then take your intent and create this vision for you. And typically you'll see sketches and I don't know, Ed and Keelan, tell me if I'm wrong, but usually you do a quick little sketch or something that gives someone an idea of how that's going to look. And for me, extremely helpful. I don't visualize well. So when I write out what I want, and then someone gives me a sketch, okay, yeah, now we're going in the right direction. Or I can say, no, put something else here or there. And I do quite well. There's a couple pretty darn good artists out there who I don't think get enough recognition. And Jim pointed me in the direction of James V. West. Really good. That guy is excellent. If you need cartoony style art, man, this is the guy to go to. I can't thank him. So I'm wearing James V. West right now. See, that's a James.
So is Jim.
Yeah.
Twinsies.
Yeah, sorry. So I've rambled on quite long enough to.
No, I actually, you rambled into a question that I wanted to ask. And if you don't want to answer this, by all means, you don't have to. 2 pieces of art for Gary Kahn were of your dad and your mom.
Yes.
So was that more in
these ones? No. Oh no. Okay.
No.
Oh no, not those. Okay.
No, not those. So was that difficult to get your intent across for what you wanted the end product to be, or did the artists kind of just pick up your vibe? Because I mean, Pirate Queen was wonderful piece.
Charles Urbach killed it.
That was amazing. And was that just direction you gave, or was that their interpretation of the actual people?
It's all right here, baby. I'm just telling you. I mean, that's all brilliant on my part. No, Charles is extremely talented. He took this very seriously, and he's just. I mean, this was. I did give him some pictures. I told him what I was looking for, but his interpretation of that went far beyond the words that I wrote on the paper. And hopefully my camera gives some quality on. There's not sheen on this, but this is but that's the art. I don't know. Hopefully it looks good. It's the Pirate Queen. It's Gary Con 11 artwork. Charles Urbach, really talented guy, really nice and humble gentleman as well. And he works in colored pencil, folks. That's what he draws.
Wow.
That's how he produces his art. Insane. So he was able to take that, and it's an interesting story behind the Pirate Queen. So my mom helped my dad run Gen Con. She did the advertising agency, and then she was also helping coordinate Gen Con. So it was at 1978, like Gen Con 10. And Fritz Leiber was a guest. And apparently some things weren't going quite so well. And my mom was, had red hair and was a nice looking lady. But she was, I think she was frustrated with some things. And so she was letting some expletives go, and might have had like a beer in her hand and was letting some expletives go about how things weren't going right. And so he dubbed her the Pirate Queen. And they had a nice correspondence by letter. They'd write letters back and forth because he thought she was great and had a lot of personality. And he made a little bronze statuette of her that was more like a Red Sonja, right? It was like
right.
Less clothed, right? So I made sure to tell Charles, I said, hey, we're not going that direction. It's my mom. She's going to be fully clothed, just so you know. We're going to have long, much more coverage in here. She'll be pretty. Here's the pictures of her. Face can be nice, but there's a lot of coverage. But it needs to be bad. He did an excellent job. And he told me how nervous he was. He was like, oh my God, I'm so glad you like this. Because it's like no pressure. I'm working for a Gygax at Gary Con drawing his mom, right? No pressure.
Yeah, no pressure at all.
Yeah. And then Gary Con 10 was basically, I kind of got the idea of an archangel, like the Archangel Michael with a flaming sword above, and as my dad, kind of in a Romanesque looking, Roman kind of armor and stuff, sending out a blast of light from his hand, devastating some undead, and there's like a lich that he's fighting as well with the flaming sword. And that I gave some pictures of my dad from the 70s, where he had a little bit longer hair and a beard, to Jeff Butler, and he was able to pretty quickly, through some sketches and some interaction with him, dial in very, very clearly to what I
Yeah, I have that one framed in my kitchen, hangs on the wall.
I want to say right now, Luke, Michael Surgos did art for us, and Alyssa does maps for us. Will you please stop stealing the best people we have? No, my point here, what I want to say though, is that if you have an art style that you like and you see, asking other publishers who they know and who they recommend, if you can just get to know them very slightly, people want to give work to artists they can't give enough work to. There's more than anything, when people ask me who your art people are, I will ask Casey Kostrovson first, who really needs the work? Because the people that we work with, we absolutely love, and we want to give them as much as we can, but we aren't endless amount of money at Frog Eye Necromancer. But, we know people who want to work. And, when I accuse Luke of stealing people, I don't mean that at all. What I really mean is I'm glad to see the people who are great doing work, and I sure want to give them work. So if you're ever looking for people and you see a book that's got a great cover, you can just email the publisher. If you see it on Drive-Thru-RPG or you see them somewhere else, email them, because there's nothing I like more than giving the people who make our books great more work that I just right now can't give them. Because publishers have cycles like everything else. And sometimes we need a bunch of art this month. And no, you can't have any of them. God damn you. But there are times when, we don't have a lot of work for them, and I want them to be successful. So I just want to add that it's not stealing when you ask about it, unless you're Luke Gygax stealing from me.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the thing for all the small publishers. Go ahead, Jim.
I just want to segue to an important point. If you're out there in the audience listening to this and you want to be a small publisher, or you're an artist who wants to work for a small publisher, the through line of this entire discussion has been job one is to network yourself to other people in the industry you want to work in. Because I'm looking at this panel and there's nobody on this panel that I haven't, you're all in my network, and there have been occasions where I've asked you for help with something and vice versa. Well, how did I get that network? How did that all start? In the case of most of these, it started at a game convention. Gary Con, North Texas Con,
Right.
Game World Con is where I met almost everybody I've met face to face, or people that were in my network shared their network with me, and I discover guys like Ed. Like Ed was doing work for Levi Combs' Planet X Games, and I just adored it. I'm like, who is that guy, and can I use him? We all talk, and you can do that too. You can, and starting, I don't want you to crash everybody who's on the panel email box, but most of us are pretty open.
Yeah, if you you know,
or come to Gary Con and just stand outside and smoke with the old guys or something, you know, playing a game.
That's actually a point I was gonna make. If you go to a game convention and you have a sketchbook and you're plopped down in a game, enjoying somebody's game, flip that sketchbook open and show it off to people, because you never know who is looking for exactly what you're doing. I mean, Keelan was on Facebook or something. I think that's how we got hooked up, and just showed some pieces. And I was like, oh my God, dude, this is amazing. And I convinced him to go to the North Texas RPG Con, and he showed up, and he's Keelan, excited like a cartoon cat bouncing off the walls. He jumped into my arms the first time I saw him, and I was like, this must be Keelan. But he took the plunge to at least make contact. And that is, and Edwin Herman says right here in the chat, some of us don't know how to network effectively. Totally get that. I am a terrible networker.
Skeeter's the worst. Skeeter's actually the worst at this. And so he actually, when he says that, he means it. And that's not an insult. It is not easy if you're not outgoing, you're not want to go. To make it any easier for you is that the people that you're talking to actually want to work, and they want to work for people who have money. They don't really often care, so long as you're not, you know, you don't push your product as this is going to be the greatest pornographic version of D&D I've ever done. If as long as it's mainstream and the kind of stuff people want to hire artists, and they want to find artists, and they want to work. So it's networking may seem hard and like imposing. It doesn't have to be. You don't have to jump in people's arms, but like when I met Keelan, I was like, you know, this guy is a pretty neat guy. It wasn't because he's showing me a sketchbooks, because I'm talking to him like a regular person, and oh, he's an artist. I'm always looking for those. When someone tells me they're an artist, I'm not like, oh boy, everybody says that. No, what do you do? What do you make? And if I don't need that, I might know who does. And I'm happy to talk to people. Conventions are a great way, but social media is too. I met Ed through social media. I'm like, hey, I recognize that art. It's awesome. You don't have to feel intimidated. Being here is a big step, honestly, because once you mention this, I'm like, I want to help, and I want people to be successful. I really do. And it's not as hard to network, I think, as it's intimidating the first time. When I emailed Jeff D to ask for a cover for my first book, I was horrified. Why? Because he just did the art that I love the best. And for me, it was important to have someone like that do the cover for Whisper and Venom, which I did 10 years ago. But right now, when I meet people, I want them to network with me because I want to see good stuff. And so don't be intimidated is my point. And Skeeter is bad about it, and I say that and I laugh, but he doesn't give himself enough respect. You should have respect in what you do, because you're already trying to do it. It's not easy. The fact that you're already this far along and asking the question is a huge deal. And so I encourage you to ask people, and I encourage you to ask me if you have questions, because I want to help. I do.
I mean, none of us came out of the thing to remember is none of us came out of the chute knowing how to do any of this stuff. I mean, Luke is the closest, because at 4 years old, his dad invented D&D, and so he got it early. But none of us came out knowing all of this stuff. So, you know, and we all have our fanboy moments too, like people where I'm just like, oh my God, it's so honored to meet you. You know, so I can't speak. Earl Otis is the prince.
Yeah,
I've gamed. He's been in a game side by side with me, but I can't speak for the whole industry. And if you catch me before I've had my caffeine and nicotine, I might be a jackass too. But for the most part, everybody's very welcoming and wants to help.
So I actually want jump over to Ed and ask a little bit about his networking story, because your background is comics, isn't it, Ed?
It was. I don't do. I kind of gave up on comics because my networking wasn't really good in comics, because and that one's a lot different than this. And gaming, you guys have a really nice community. It seems like I haven't seen too much drama. And in comics,
stick around.
And so far, I must be in the right circle, because there doesn't seem like to be a lot of drama and egos in my network for games. Yeah. But I was at a Comic-Con, and I had a table, and this guy was walking around in a black suit and a tie, talking to people about stuff. And out of all the artists there, I'm the only one who gave him the time of day and talked to him, and because everyone thought he was full of hooey, whatever. And I talked to him because, he's a person. I'll talk to anybody as long as there aren't any creeper or anything like that. And it turned out it was Casey Christopherson, Necromancer art director. And
never heard of him.
Huh?
Never heard of him. No, he works with us at Necromancer Games. So that's how the network is. So
right.
Known reprobate.
So he gave me his card, and I had his card, and then he wasn't the one that called me for work first. It was Levi Coombs contacted me like about 2 or 3 months later and said he talked to Casey, and Casey sent him my way. And so I ended up working. Levi and I have been working together ever since. So
that's how I got in contact with you, was from Levi.
And
it can definitely work. And one of the things about being a small publisher is when you start to get friends and people that that are also small publishers, there is a little, small publisher mafia. We trade names and we say like, yeah, don't work with this guy, or yeah, you need to work with this person. And it's Jim is a great nexus, and I'm gonna shine the light on Jim because he helps so many people, and he is at the position, he will ask questions. If he doesn't know something, he finds out who knows, asks the questions. Now he knows. Jim gave me some great advice about making mistakes in small publishing. It's like, oh man, I ordered the wrong book. It cost me X amount of dollars. So I got to redo it. And he said, did you learn a lesson? And I was like, yes. And he said, cheapest tuition check you'll ever write. And a lot of times, I mean, this is a complete exaggeration. Small publishing can make you want to hang yourself. I mean, it can be very stressful. And if you make a mistake, sometimes you feel like your business will not be able to recover, or, you've burned a bridge. And that is very, very rarely the case. As someone who has a hobby of burning bridges, it's a lot harder than you think. People are actually really forgiving. And if you apologize, a lot of people will give you second or third or fourth chances.
AC Christopherson just texted me because he's mad because I didn't tell him we canceled a meeting because I'm in this seminar. So just so you know, he has a power to help anybody, and he's everywhere and nowhere. Just want you to know that just this second. So we're serious. Networking matters. And because we mentioned his name, he popped out of nowhere, but people are connected to all kinds of people, and just making the connection. And I'm going to say this now and be done for a while because I don't want to hog this at all, but I am here because I went to GaryCon 4. I am only here because of that. Jim Wampler can remember the story, but I am here because I went to a GameCon. I'm like, these are my people. I love this.
Right.
I love meeting the people I met. I met Michael Curtis, who's a rival Goodman. I like Luke. I met everybody. I encourage people to do online cons like this because that's what we have now. But if you're comfortable going to a gaming con, it could be a really small one, go. Because honestly, if you feel uncomfortable, you feel nervous, these are your people. You are wanting to do this because the people who are there want to be your friends because we love this stuff all together. I encourage that a lot. I'll be quiet now, but I wanted to get shout about Casey because it made me laugh, but mostly because I think that's the point I want to get across the most. And so I'm going to pass it on to
Zach, you're 100% right. I'm sitting here because of you. Period. I mean, if you think about
unluckiest
it,
one here. Yeah, I know.
but every single person here around me, I actually know because of you. You are that single point of nexus. That map I did for you. Then you invited me to go to a convention, and I went, and I met the frogs, and it blew up from there. So it's just follow those convention leads, you know, those in-person meetings.
And for the people who may watch this later on or are in the chat now, because our conventions are virtual, doesn't mean that you can't show off a sketchbook. If you're in a game and you pop up and you're on Zoom and you can see each other, you know, come into the game a few minutes early, ask people if they're interested in seeing some sketches. I mean, it may seem super weird to do. Yeah, but you can show off some of the stuff you do, and you never know who, like I said before, you don't know who is specifically looking for what you can do. I'm going to share one more piece of art before we move on. And this is just going to embarrass the shit out of somebody who is actually in the chat, but I wanted to show this off. This was a piece that I got.
Oh, see, you beat me to it. You're going to embarrass her before I got a chance to.
Hey, you got to be on your toes, man. No, this was also from Crypto Codex, and my art notes were I wanted little blue aliens, you know, basically like the little spacefaring guys, but I also wanted another version that was the giant blue people from Fantastic Planet. And never in a million years did I think that Alla Fedorova would come up with this, and I love it so much.
Okay, my turn. I had this player that kept showing up in my games, and as players do, doing little sketches on the side. Very typical. I do it myself. But this one person's sketches were pro quality, even just goofing off pencil sketches. And then on Facebook, one Inktober, where all the artists share their inked work. I saw that work, and then the name clicked, and I'm like, okay, I've got my eye on this person. And then lo and behold, one Gary Con, I decided to leave the old man table and go check on what the younglings were up to at their table. And Alla Fedorova said, I'd like to do art for you. And I'm like, I would love to have you do that. And now her and Keelan are two of the stars on my art team.
Yeah, that's how it happens.
All from going to Gary Con, North Texas Con, and Gamehole Con.
This is the last bit of art that I'm going to share. This is also in Crypto Codex. That's art I did. So you can see the vast difference between a professional artist and somebody who just needs a thing.
Those are amazing spotted blacks.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very symmetrical composition, Skeeter. Well done.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
I particularly like the shading in the top left corner there. That was
very you like
well
that?
Is that the image you see after they shoot you in the eye with the laser and there's just that black
spot? Yeah, pretty much.
Have you considered writing? Writing a Skeeter, that's what I would say.
Yeah, that's questionable at best also. Okay, so we're about at the top of the hour. So I want to do an around the room with the guests to give the one bit of art-based advice that you think people need to know. The pinnacle golden rule of art. And I'll start with Jim since he helps everyone.
Find and do art that you're passionate about. Find your topic. Keelan talked about this earlier. Just find the subject matter, what you are very, very, very passionate about, because you need that passion to carry you through the 10,000 hours of work it takes to build a skill set and do everything we're talking about. It's a bunch of hard work. Nobody wants to hear that, but it's unavoidable. The passion will carry you through that. The passion will carry you through, like, okay, if every third piece I do is not satisfactory to me, you just sign up like it's cutting tuition checks. I'm going to do 6 pieces and know I get 2 good ones. The passion for what you're doing. And that can be subject matter or personal relationships or whatever.
Yeah,
most of us here are nuts about D&D and gaming, tabletop role-playing games.
Yeah, if you can at all, avoid it. Don't slog away doing something you hate. That will kill your soul, and that's my day job. So,
I mean, my passion is the sort of genre mash post-apocalyptic setting from the old Pulp Fiction. That's what I groove on. So that's what I do. I can write D&D stuff, fantasy stuff if I want to, but the passion is what causes me to have the brilliant idea to do a quarterly publication that never sleeps and always wants more.
The devouring. Ed, what's your art advice?
Is this for artists or for the publisher?
This is a bit of information you want to impart to the world at large. Because that's how I give art direction. Very vague and stupid.
I tell people like they always tell writers to write about what you know. And I do the same. I took that and did that with art, and that's why a lot of my I have a big maintenance background. I did 10 years in the Air Force. I was in maintenance there. I fixed copy machines. I worked at Chuck E. Cheese and fixed all the video games and rides. So that's why all my mechanical stuff all looks mechanical, because I draw what I know.
Right.
And you still have to use references, and it's okay to use references. It's not cheating to use a reference to look at something, or even be inspired by another artist and look at their stuff and study the masters to also do the art. So I guess I started wandering off here. Just like Jim said, do your passion. And also, now I'm not saying this is when you're the client, but don't listen to anybody else. If you draw with thick, fat lines, or you draw with a palette knife or whatever, do your thing, your art. Do your thing, and don't worry about what anyone else says, and you need to correct this and correct that, because your people are going to find you, and they're going to hire you to do your thing. So don't worry about trying to copy Frazetta or to copy Larry Elmore or copy someone else, unless that's your thing. Do your thing, and your clients will find you and hire you to do your thing.
Yeah. Speaking to that, Ed does these little drawings of the day, lunchtime drawing stuff, and he pulled out this robotic guy, and it had Kirby Crackle around it, and I was just like, I'm done. I need to own that person. I need Ed to live in my house and make art for me all the time. It was fantastic. It's just a thing that he did, and it was exactly what I was looking for. Alyssa.
I'm going to kind of actually answer a question that came up in chat from Laura in my response. So Laura asked earlier on, is it okay to use Fiverr? And I'm going to answer that because I have actually used Fiverr, but I'm going to answer it in a little bit of a roundabout way. Build relationships. Doesn't matter what side of the fence you're on, build relationships. You're going to get cartographers and artists that don't come through, you know, and it doesn't matter what contract you got in place or what agreement you got in place. You're gonna hit that. Either they just get it completely wrong, they don't like the revisions that you're asking for, they just simply do not deliver. That's part of the reality. And so learn to recognize when you're actually dealing with someone who's got a certain work ethic. They do follow through. They hit the deadlines that you're giving them. Always make sure the deadlines are understood on both sides. And hold on to them. Like, build a rapport with them, build a friendship with them. It is really, really, really important. If you're on the artist side of things, bloody well follow through and ask what the deadlines are and meet them. And if you're on the other side and you're hiring the artist, realize when you're dealing with someone who is just dead weight. Unfortunately, it is a reality. I hire people myself. Sometimes they are dead weight. I recognize that and I move on, and build yourself a little network of people that you can rely on. How does that relate to Fiverr? Fiverr's good in the same way that DeviantArt is good. You're going to be able to look at someone's portfolio, and maybe that someone has got a library of things that they've done that meet your criteria. Cool. But at least Fiverr sort of controls that to a degree, but you're not going to really have an opportunity to build that rapport. I've used them for logo creation. it worked out actually pretty well. I'm happy with the results. I've also used them to build a whole bunch of chibi Alyssas, like 60 of them, and they're freaking awesome. But I was looking at a very specific deliverable, and this person did this style, and I'm like, yes, I want this, and I'm really happy with the results. But if I want a relationship of ongoing artwork or whatever it is, I probably wouldn't use Fiverr. I have used DeviantArt. It's still hit and miss because you're basically throwing it out there saying, hey, I like your artwork. Can you do something for me? And I know nothing about you or your work ethic, or even if you're going to come through, or even if you're going to be on time. Let's do business. And it's a chance. And if it works out, great, try to foster that relationship. But if I was going to use Fiverr, I would be for a very specific thing. And ultimately, I don't think you're going to build a relationship beyond that way. You'd be better off trying to hunt through other avenues, in my humble opinion.
Yeah, I think there's definitely using like drive-through RPG as a resource to look through titles, because normally it has, you know, who the artist is, or you can look through stock art and just see what certain people are doing. And then there's contact information where you can ask people, hey, I was looking at this. I like this style. Can you do something like this? I think there's Ed raising his hand.
Yeah, I want to raise my hand. I wanted to add to something she said.
Yeah.
I wanted to do the artist side about working with clients. It's also sometimes it's okay to, because you're not going to see eye to eye with everyone all the time. And sometimes someone's going to make you revise stuff 1,000 times and you're never going to have what they have. So know when to cut bait and just say, hey, and just be professional, because they might have another project for you later on, and just say, I don't think we have the same vision, and I'm not going to be able to complete your vision, and cut bait, and you go your way and go their way professionally, and just that's what I wanted to add for the artist side.
I had to
that's
do
a good
that
ad.
with
That's
an
why
artist.
I won't work with Skeeter. That's right. That's good.
I'm awful. No, I had to do that with an artist. I paid them for their work and didn't use it because they did the work. So I felt like I should pay for it, but it wasn't what I needed. So, that happens. And that's a hard truth about small publishing is sometimes you got to foot the bill for a mistake, whether it was you chose the wrong artist for the vision, or you didn't give them the proper direction, or just cosmically it did not work out. Sometimes that happens. Let's go to Luke. What is your bit of advice about art, sir?
Obviously, we've gotten a lot of good advice, and I think the things that stick with me are develop a relationship. Find somebody you like and develop a relationship. As Alyssa said, there will be some hit and miss, so recognize that and don't throw good money after bad. Communicate those deadlines. If you have access to an art director, utilize them or get that advice from the person so you can learn the ropes. You do need to know the questions. Hey, what are you using this for? What's the resolution that you need it for? It's going to be different if you're printing a book cover versus a 3-foot, a full-size poster, right? So those things matter. And getting that graphic artist design stuff, building a brand or having a look to a series of modules or whatever the product is, that's important too. If it's too diverse, people won't recognize it as yours. So kind of think about those things, put a little thought into it. And that's where your art director buddy or art director that you have working for you can help you out in that regard. So yeah, just pretty solid basic advice. Oh, there's a website too. So when you don't have a lot of money, the modules I'm putting out, I don't put out to make money so much as just to write and to partner with people that I want to write with and to make cool adventures for GaryCon. Sometimes you won't have an art budget to commission 10 original pieces of art that go in there. So there's some websites that give you access to, second use art that can work as filler to break up your stat blocks in the words on the page. So when you're doing that, you do want to think about, obviously your cover is going to be very important. And then what's unique or more unique to your, for me, it's like a module writing. So what's unique for your piece of work that you want to have those artists, compose for you and create for you that stand out, and what can be a generic filler. Yeah. And then balance that based on your budget. If you can do it all new, great, fantastic. But that does ring up the bill a little bit.
Yeah, that's a great point about layout. Is nobody wants to open up adventure and it's just walls of text. Mm-hmm. I mean, get some visual interest in there, put some boxes, put some tables, whatever, put some other little flourishes in there. But yeah, you don't want a novel when you open up the book. It's like, okay, this is all words. I can't even see where I'm at.
Right. So, you do get kind of lost in it, right? Yeah. So break it up.
That's a solid point. Wonky.
Yeah, for my, I guess, big tip to give to the world, and it kind of plays on what I was talking about earlier. In my opinion, the best way to get good art from an artist is to make the artist excited about your project. I don't particularly enjoy reading through 15 pages of text about one art piece. I want you to make me feel there. Like, what are the players in this game going to be feeling? Is it going to be the wind through the hair? Like, make it dynamic. And I want to be like a part of this, make the artist invested in it. And so it's not just a job. It's more of, helping with the creation of your project or whatever. I think that's a very big thing for me, is I will put in 3 times as much effort on a piece that I really care about. And it's not something I necessarily control. It's just, I want to put in those extra little touches and do whatever I can to make it the best piece I can. And you always do that for the client, but when it's something you really deeply care about, I think that's how you get a home run.
I'm typing. I'll be right there. Zach, go.
I'm going to actually answer a really good question that came up in the chat, which is related to rights and existing rights to art that you already like, and do you want to use that? Would you make an offer? There's a couple of things with that. The first thing is I would go in knowing there's probably 3 different vectors that will come out of that conversation. You should always ask, if you really like that specific piece and you're willing to work on a contract with it, you have very specific guidelines. I'm going to use it for this, only this. What would you charge, et cetera? I think that's fine. I think the 3 things will happen is they'll say, yes, you can totally do that, and they'll give you a price. They'll say, no, but I'd love to do a piece for you anyway. Because a lot of artists, I think they're flattered when you like their art. They really are. They like that people like their art and they want to work. Going in saying, hey, I really like this piece of art, I'm doing a project, you may actually find them more willing to do new piece for a lot less money than you think sometimes, because they're happy to do a piece for a fan. I mean, that can happen. And when you explain, a lot of times we'll go to more expensive artists and say, look, we have a budget. Our budget is X. What can you do for X? And if X is as low as $25, sometimes, yeah, I will license you that art. I'm happy to. Like I said, I would never go in though and say, I will promote it in my book, because that is unfortunately, it's a good intention. And why we promote our artists all the time, especially on social media, we try to do that. But that comes across like you're trying to get it for cheap. And you don't ever want to approach it like you're trying to get it for cheap. You want to say you'd like to get it in a budget you got. Offering promotion in return, especially on first time or second time publishing projects, isn't an incentive. It's a cliche bad thing. It's like using a Comic Sans or a papyrus font. Okay.
Hey man, I'll pay you in work exposure.
They call it exposure bucks, and I didn't want to use that, but that's a great question. But asking to license existing art and explaining how much you like it is a great avenue to find the stuff you want. If they're willing to, sometimes you'll find, oftentimes, Frog God, we actually allow our people who are part of our World Anvil subscription. We have thousands of pieces of black and white art. I mean, literally thousands of pieces of black and white art done in the 2000s through 2012. We have an agreement where we work where you can use some of that art in published products, depending on a couple of small circumstances. But we'd rather see it used in products that are, nothing pornography, nothing violent, no drug use, no communism, no Nazism, no politics kind of thing, right? We have a narrow guidelines. It's about elves. We're cool as long as they're doing elf things that we all know, right? But there are ways to get that kind of art, and it exists out there, and we want to see it done. People like to have their art and stuff. If they already drew it, they drew it from another client, and they own the rights outright, it's important. That's good. But one of the things is like for when we buy art, Frog God Necromancer buys art, we own it. I mean, we have a contract that specifically says that art belongs to us, and it may be, although they're producing a webcomic, they may have an agreement with somebody else. They can't do it. Don't take that the wrong way. Make sure you understand that art, the use of art and how it gets used sometimes is really complicated. And I deal with this all the time, but we have a full-time partner at Frog God Necromancer that he does contracts. He's a lawyer. And we're lucky because we can't afford to write contracts all the time without someone we can make do it for free. That damn Matt Finch. No, but honestly, there are so many complications to it that don't be disappointed if they can't do it. And use that, though, as a great avenue to approach them, because nothing makes me want to talk to you about books when you say how great you love my book, right? And if you're genuine, you know it. I wouldn't go to, somebody that I would hate their stuff and say, I like your stuff, and they can't name one thing about it. But if you generally love his art style, explain what you like, and show an example of what you like, that's a great in. Just make sure you understand that if they say no, it isn't just because they think you're too cheap, you're not good. There are a lot of uses about art, a lot of things that people have that are too hard to explain. But never stop, never don't ask. If it's somebody, especially somebody that is starting out and new, the webcomic's free, and you see them out there trying to look for stuff, never don't ask, because I always want to, encourage people to do those kind of things, and please do. So that's my answer to that.
As an example of small publishing, last week, I got the opportunity I'm going to publish another writer's book for SGP. And I got the vibe of the book and the outline and the cover art that the author wanted. I thought, wow, this would be so amazing if such and such artist would do it. I don't have a personal relationship with that artist. So I asked somebody that I do have a relationship to pass along an email to that person. And if they are interested, that they would contact me. Well, that person contacted me. And yes, I just about shit myself. So then what happened was that person is not going to be able to do the art until next year. So then the impetus comes on me. Do I want to wait? Is that in the schedule, or do I bypass this opportunity? And the way the schedule is going to lay out, it's going to work out perfectly fine. So I'm going to get the art from the person that I wanted on the cover of this book that I wanted. So sometimes you just got to be flexible with your schedule and your wants and your needs and what you think is going to be the best product. Because at the end of the day, what's going to last longer than your idea for this product is the product itself. So don't half-ass it, because once it exists forever. And I mean, you can change it, do another cover and stuff like that, but that sucks. Jim.
This is a business truism for any business, not just the one we're talking about. If you don't ask, the answer is always no. And I just went through a version of this that Zach reminded me of when he was talking, where I have an unannounced project I can't talk about, but it had a very specific need. It needed a Frazetta cover, right? And nobody in my art network can do that Frazetta style, but somebody in my network, Dan Smith, has got a fantastic network of his own. So I just call up like a stooge and ask Dan, who do you know? Who's in this? And I end up with a guy who's semi-retired, but has all this fantastic work. Can he, at 70, paint this for me? He doesn't want to. Could I afford him if he did want to? No. But here's a library of stuff he's got, and I'll license any of this to you for X amount of dollars, which was less than I would pay a new artist to do the cover. Done and done. And it was all just by asking. I just emailed the guy, found the guy's website and emailed him bold as brass and asked, because what's he going to say? No. Okay. Well, I'm back where I started. No harm, no foul.
You're killing me, Smalls. Well, I actually did something exactly like what Jim is talking about. I, out of the blue, messaged Sarah Frazetta, and she responded, and she actually did some art of my wife, and it hangs on my wall, and it's on the Crypt of the Science Wizard in the front. It's the black and white. So those things can happen. You got to get over the fear of asking, and you got
it doesn't always work. I begged Larry Elmore for a cover.
Geez. Oh yeah,
once,
no.
And almost had him talked into stopping his $10,000 commission to do this cover, but in the end it wasn't just not going to work out.
Yeah, no, you will get disappointed sometimes, but that's all it is it's a disappointment. It's not the end of the world. You will go on and you will do other stuff. So please somehow work it out that you can ask the question of people so you can get the art that you want. So we're at 6:15 Pacific time. We have 45 minutes left in this seminar. Unless someone has a specific thing they want to say from the panel, I'm just going to open this up to everybody. If you want to unmute your mic and ask a question, go for it. If you want to chat, ask a question. At this point, we're just hanging out in the convention bar, shooting the shit. Ask any questions you want. Be respectful.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I had a quick question. I was going to publish some RPGs on Drive-Thru RPG, and I wanted to do a free version and then a full version. Is it okay just to have cover art for the free version and then do interior art for the full version?
Totally.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I can answer that. I think that's a good idea to make a version free so people can preview it, so they feel like they feel a little invested in it before they purchase it. Yeah, I think that's absolutely the way to go. And your cover art is by far your most important asset. If you make a free version that has no or very little interior art, go for it. I would recommend you do it that way very much.
I think that is referred to in the business as printer friendly.
Oh, okay. Goblinoid Games did that with Labyrinth Lord and Mutant Futures. That very thing.
Yeah, so there is a precedent for doing that. Absolutely.
How many pieces of interior art should I have if I'm going to produce a full version with interior art?
Ooh, boy, that's the $64 billion question. Every company is different. Some have a, percentage of a page per page, which means like, oh, you have, a quarter page piece every 2 pages or a full page piece every 3 pages or something like that. That Jim and other people can talk more about that. I get crazy about art. So I just get like, I don't care how much it costs. This is what I want. And it's like, oh, how come your books aren't making any money? Because I just do stuff like that. But I don't know if there is a golden ratio of that. Jim or Ed, do you guys know?
I'm a bad person to ask because since I started as an artist, I pack it with art. But
right.
The real answer is it depends on the layout, and a good layout will tell you how much art to put in and how to space things out. And a good layout person will will lay it out and leave the holes for you. That would be the ideal way to do it. But chances are, if you're just starting out, you're the layout person and you're not laying it out in InDesign. You're doing it as a Word doc or something. So at that point, my advice is just find some other published RPG pieces in your field that you like and copy what they did.
Yes. What was that question again?
No, I just want to address Ed shaking his head when Jim said sometimes you lay out in Word. Hey, you know what? I did that. And it looked fine.
In Comic Sans, right? For your headers.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know why so much hate for the Comic Sans. I love it.
I was there when Skeeter tried to learn InDesign. I was there when Skeeter tried to use InDesign. I'm going to recommend, if you were comfortable with Word and you've never seen InDesign, I've seen what a person who's new to something like that looks like after 5 minutes. It is
sweet Jesus, it was bad.
No, it was something. I did my book in InDesign, and I learned InDesign, did everything from 0 to 100 in like 3 months. And I don't recommend that, only because it is a huge task. And you can make a book that looks really good in PDF on Drive-Thru-RPG if you use Word for your very first book. No one's going to think that well, what a loser, they didn't use InDesign. InDesign's expensive, it's hard, and we pay people a lot of money to use it, so we don't have to. So don't feel if you don't have that tool, you can't do it. Please do. Don't be what Skeeter Green was, because you ever see the old cartoons when the ears come out and they have all the smoke coming out?
I can get so graphically angry.
Yeah, no, and don't be that, and don't feel because you don't have the tools, people don't know that you don't, and they still will like your work. They will. Most of the stuff that I value the most, and I collect RPGs, and I have very many of them. The ones that I value the most are the ones that you can tell were made from the heart, and they were laid out in ways that I would find interesting. Like, I wouldn't lay a book out like that because, we have a different target, but there won't be people who won't love it for what it is. I think my favorite books right now are zines like Scientific Barbarian and Levi Combs and stuff. And I mean, these things are cool and people want to see it, and they can do that in Word. Those things can be done. Don't let the fact that you don't have InDesign and can't afford a layout person stop you if you're comfortable with Microsoft Office. Eventually, you can get to the point where you can hire someone or teach yourself, because there's a lot of ways to do that. And I can talk about why you teach yourself that. But don't overwhelm yourself because you can't do it the way, like for instance, like Necromancer Games or WotC does, right? You don't have to do that to publish for yourself and make it fun for other people. I did that, and I don't recommend it, though. If you want to know how I did that path, I'm more than happy to tell you. But
well, honestly, I mean,
yeah,
almost all of us came up in the 70s and 80s gaming, and to be honest, the books didn't look fantastic, but they are absolutely playable. There are so many of them that are critically important. I mean, the AD&D Dungeon Master's Guide is probably my favorite book of all time. That is the book I would swear an oath on, and I love it. And it isn't super slick and fancy. I mean,
that book. I was going to pull out the OD&D stuff. Now that's bad.
Yeah, the little brown books. Oh my God.
Yeah, those are horrible.
Well, I mean,
I don't have to.
Yeah, I mean, when you're chiseling stone tablets and then duplicating those, it leaves a little something.
Well, Luke, back me up. The first two hires are always a copy editor and a layout guy when you're getting the position to do that. I just hired a copy editor because I'm done doing it.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean,
hey, Skeeter, you got a question about VTT? You want to go ahead and let them on mic and ask
I don't. Anybody can unmic themselves.
No, it's right. It's from Ruxid LLC.
Sure. So this is Shiloh. So I've just done a Kickstarter, and basically virtual tabletops was not really an issue for small publishers, say 1 year ago, definitely not 2 years ago. And now it's such a significant part of any publication. So it seems to be pretty standard that we're doing tokens and maps, and so we're dealing with different resolutions, and the map that you put into a virtual tabletop may be much more detailed than what you may want to cram into something, especially for a zine, which is the size that I'm working on, where you only have half a sheet to display pretty much anything. So what are the kind of challenges or things that you've overcome or seen that has worked for you as far as doing both the print publication, but also the virtual tabletop support?
Skeeter, can I take this one real quick?
No, you've talked enough. Jesus, shut up. No, I'm kidding.
No,
Zach actually, this is Zach's wheelhouse. So
I'll be straight honest with you. That's a really great question. And it's something you need to consider when you're buying maps. Art is it's a little easier with art because tokens, if you a little bit of knowledge or hiring someone with graphic design, you have a monster image or NPC image or whatever, those can be made. They can be made nicely, and you can also get ones like they make it free available ones from the VTTs have ones they license, etc. But having that in mind is really important. And we actually No one's here that will care. I'll just tell a story real fast about inside work at Frog God. We had a big problem with a book coming up that when we first did the art orders 2.5 years ago, because the book's been delayed, we did not make the plans for this book to be in VTT, and we just invested an extra $2,000 on our part to go back and do that. So this is not just a small publisher thing. This is a medium and large publisher deal as well. When you're actually considering your art and your maps, make sure that you know the sizes and your needs. And if you're planning an adventure or something for the first time, really think hard, like how many maps make it good and how many you need. So you don't have to do that 3 different times, 3 different ways, and think about it and ask your cartographers that you've asked about maps, because you know what? They've done this before. They kind of know about it. We actually have hiring people right now to do this for us because, quite frankly, all of us are old and we can play on one maybe, but we can't set one up, but there are people who can. And a lot of them will do it inexpensively, but if you think about it in advance and ask the questions, you will have a way better chance of getting there. And I agree with you. We don't make a whole lot of our percentage of our income is not huge on VTTs yet, but it's going to be. And being present on a VTT and being able to have those components, because even when I first did mine 10 years ago, Whisper and Venom, people would ask me about that. I would make the assets available to them that I had so they could run their game better for free, just because people were running the game. And if they're running it on Twitch, and there wasn't even Twitch back then, if they're running it live on an Apple iPod podcast or whatever, which they're doing, that was good for me. And I was happy to hear it. And I love listening to the games. But having those things available so people can make the game playable is important. And thinking about it early helps. And I can't encourage you enough to try to do that within your same budget with multi-use. Just be very clear when you're hiring an artist that this is not going to be just an image inside of a printed book. It's going to be in the PDF. It's going to also be on the VTT, and it's going to also be here. And we handle that by going, we own the art outright. And that's what we have to, we do that because we don't know what we're going to do with going forward. And so just be aware of those things, because when these pop up and new things happen, like we do books now on and Kindle, and we do books different ways, and we use the same art there. And so that's why I'm glad that I don't often accuse him of huge foresight, but my boss, Bill Webb, had huge foresight in the fact that we own all of the art we got, because we're able to reuse it. And we're also able to offer it for other people to use because we own it outright. And we want to see it get used, and we can make those decisions. Make sure.
Okay, Boomer, you didn't even answer the question. Can I move on to somebody who will answer the question?
Yes, do VTTs.
Alyssa, when somebody needs a map for print and they also want to use the map for VTT, what are some steps that people should consider?
Well, I do my maps with VTT for Zach, so he kind of answered it. But no, I mean, seriously.
No, we didn't.
I actually, so in all truth, I've only had VTT referenced a couple of times in relationship with my maps, because most of my maps are like my background. They're city maps, and so you don't get that many on VTT. You're going to get a lot more because I'm going to be putting all of my maps on VTT. But dungeon maps and things like that, I actually had Frog God contact me about Teagle Manor, and they told me that odds on they were going to put it on VTT. Now, I know that, let's say Roll20, I think... I think it's Roll20. They're working off blocks of 140 pixels, actually 70 pixels, but they recommend 140. And I knew that I was going to have to go big DPI, massive resolution, massive detail, because this thing's going to get cut for big zoom ins and such. Right. And so I went bigger than any map that I've ever done, not just drawing 12 feet by 12 feet in that particular instance, but because I knew it had to withstand high level of detail, high level of zoom, but also just supporting that 140 pixel blocks, you know? So for me, that was my consideration. I drew bigger. I drew bigger and at a much higher resolution than I normally would. I'm doing the same on Necropolis for Frogs right now as well, because I want, if you're going to drop it into a VTT, I know that you need to be able to zoom in, not just for battle map scale, but you might go a bit bigger than that. And I want every little flagstone and everything to stand up to the test of time. So for me, draw big and lots of DPI, honestly. You can't get big enough. Now, I know that you've got to then cut it down for 10 megabyte limits, but that's okay. Be prepared to cut the map down, you know, into sections.
Yeah, you can definitely section them out.
Well,
so
and you have to with the big map. So
Yeah.
I mean, that's just it. Your 10 megabyte limits, and people like actually having individual sections that join together beautifully and smoothly. So that's one consideration, is what I'm going to draw. I need to remember that this thing's going to get cut up almost like a square jigsaw puzzle.
Yeah, so essentially the takeaway is just make sure your cartographer or your artist knows ahead of time what your intended use is. And they may know what they need to do without much encouragement or,
they should ask.
Direction. Yeah.
They should. I mean, there should be a conversation. And if they don't ask, then you know, honestly, they may not be that experienced, but they should be. So how are you going to use this? You know, is it printed? Are you going to use it on other things, or outright tell them if that's the case, because they may approach the project in a completely different way.
So we have a question from the chat that isn't directly related to art, but it is an excellent small publisher question. Where do you recommend printing? Overseas or local? And we'll start with Zach on this one because he does an extensive amount of printing in both places.
I was supposed to shut up because I talk too much.
Okay, Boomer.
You say it to me again, I'm going to get you. All right.
I'm older than you are.
I know. I was about to say that. No, anyway. Yes, we publish both overseas in Hong Kong with Regent Publishing for books. We also publish, I live in Cottonwood, Arizona, a town of about 8,000 people, 10,000 people. We publish there too. We publish a POD as well, print on demand. We obviously do digital and Kindle. So we do all kinds of styles. For small press publishers, I can't stress enough how much you would like to work with a local print shop, even if it's a little bit more. Most print books, you won't have a huge run. So they might be a little more expensive per unit, but you'll get a proof. You'll get people who can go back and ask you a question like, hey, this is going to print, but it's going to print bright orange and go all the way off the page. You know, they'll ask you the kind of things that will help you because they do want to help you. They do this all the time. You know, every church bulletin that gets printed, every time a school makes something, these people have experience working with people who don't usually do publishing and are happy to do it. Whereas if you get a little more familiar, you can use those files again. You can do print on demand. There's a whole other conversation that's really long, but it's worth having sometime. Or we do it in China, and printing overseas is great, but make sure you have two things: a giant garage and understanding how many units it takes to make that actually worthwhile. Because printing in China is awesome, but it is very specific. I mean, it takes me 3 days to write the quote proposal just to get a book proposal back on how much it costs me per unit, and gets even more expensive otherwise because I got to write spot colors for a strip of ribbon. I've got to make sure I know how far I want the wrap around the hardcover text to go and how deep it is. Do I want it above or below the flypaper? I mean, very specific stuff that when you get it there, they don't care if they're wrong. If you gave them that instruction, they're going to do it because that's how they function, and they're great at it. But that is a perilous way to do it if you've never considered it before. So definitely a local print shop. And honestly, you can get some great stuff print on demand through various sites all over the internet, like Lulu, and you can see one copy, put it up and see what it looks like. There's lots of really great ways to do it. Print on demand has gotten so much better from the days when I first started doing 2012. We get copies back now, even in standard color, that look great. They don't seem washed out. The paper they're using is improving. It's not as nice. I mean, honestly, we get lots of stuff printed in a very fancy place in Hong Kong or even the US. That's the best. I mean, it really is the best stuff, but there's a reason why it's expensive, and there's a reason why it's hard. There's so many great places to get it, and I will love your book just as much if it's print on demand or print in a local shop that I will from Hong Kong, sometimes more. So there's a lot of reason to do it locally, and that's what I recommend first.
So I want to move over to Jim because Jim is doing the zines, and he also does other items like bookmarks that go with them. So can you talk a little bit about that stuff, Mr. Wampler?
It's almost, you need to start with a Venn diagram of your needs and who you're selling to. Mud Puppy Games has not reached the point where I'm going to do something that needs to be a Smithsonian binding case wrap hardback. But when I do, I will go to Regent in China, where Frog God does a lot of their stuff, and where Metamorphosis Alpha 4th edition was printed back in the day. And that level of production, I don't know how many people watching need that. I haven't built back up to that point, because that was one of the hardest initial lessons I learned, is when you order books from China, you better mean it. If anybody wants a copy of 4th edition Metamorphosis Alpha, there are 2 pallets in a Studio 2 warehouse in Knoxville, Tennessee, and they'll sell you a copy. But local printers are good, but it's a return on an investment. I want to be a good American, so my bookmarks started out being printed by my local print guy. Everybody that goes back to the old pre-press days like me likes having my guy in my town, and I had one that I was using until the pandemic hit, and they couldn't give me what I needed, and I did my research, asked around through my network, and found a POD bookmark printmaker that does just as good a job, gives me proofs, a 1 or 2 week turnaround, and that suffices. So, like if you're, it was Justin LaPointe that asked about a zine. Zine print on demand is fine for zine. One bookshelf print on demand is not the worst. Lulu is pretty good. The saddle stitch thing is kind of fading, but Lulu still does it. And depending on how 70s you want your zine to be, you can print them and bind them yourself with a giant stapler and a straight edge.
I have one. I actually want to end this part of the conversation with Luke, because as a convention coordinator, GaryCon does a lot of stuff and has to get printing from all over the place. And Luke knows a thing or two about logistics. So what can you add to this?
I think, so yeah, doing stuff with, much as Jim said, if you work with a local guy or local company and you, again, build that relationship, they will call you and they'll ask, hey, is this what you want? Or, hey, how about this? Or let me do this little refinement on your graphics. So I would use Alpha Graphics in Madison to do stuff for GaryCon, like like the table cards and the bidding cards and signage and all that sort of stuff. And then someone can pick it up and deliver it. Like, people who are in the area will just drive it down, and that saves you on shipping. But if I'm going to print large quantities of something that's like a brochure or flyers or things like that, I don't use the local guy. I'll use uprinting.com or something like that. But if you mess that up, just like China, you'll get exactly what you ordered.
Yep.
So that's the danger. It's a little bit cheaper. There's the shipping involved or whatever, but you want 3,000 of them in color, it's going to be cheaper than asking the local print shop to do it. So again, that's where that graphics guy, that art director is going to make their money and get you the right dimensions and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, I use a mix of those 2 things. The local print shop for my signage, and in that way I interact and go back and forth with the designer. If it's something that I'm going to order a whole bunch of the same thing, then it's probably more economical to use an online service or something to do it. Same thing for kind of designing shirts too, right?
So a little more specifically, as far as GaryCon goes, for like the cups and the specialty items like that, that's where does that come from?
There's actually a couple different spots I use. I think, oh my gosh, I'm forgetting. It's because it's been a couple of years. I haven't done it.
Right.
But yeah, I do that all online. I even order the shot glasses online. It's cheaper than using my glass etch guy. I used to use Gordy at Zip Etch, but his prices were a little higher. He was charging me about $5, I think, for a shot glass or something like that, and I can get it for $1.25 online. So that's what I did. Even the shipping, it then became more economical to do. But yeah, I use something for less, mugs for less, or, whatever it is, stadiumcups.com. And you just make sure you got your design correct, and then use the preview function, and you're all right. And if the only time I had it messed up was when I actually used a friend connection and they didn't follow my instructions and they replaced it. So Jim might have been around for that one. I don't know, where they printed black on the blue cups instead of white on the blue cups. It didn't turn out very well.
Oh, yes, I remember.
Yeah. but I have a bunch of extra cups with dark writing on them that don't look quite right, but it's all right. So yeah, I mean, for those repetitive
Holy
functions,
cow, I want one of those cups.
yeah, for those repetitive functions, yeah, it's better to go with your online guys are probably going to have those economies of scale that make it cheaper. Stadium cups are pretty light, even though they cube out a little bit higher. So the shipping's not too bad on them. Glassware is expensive. The glassware shipping, if you can get it local, consider the shipping cost. So it's really just what you're doing and how big and how many of those things you're doing that makes a huge difference.
Cool. I am gonna ask this question with no backstory, just because I want to get Luke's reaction. How about getting dice made?
Actually, dice can be quite challenging. It can be a very challenging thing. Yeah, that's.
Yeah, okay, that's what I was looking for, and I got that recorded. I'm gonna keep it forever. No, and what I was mostly aiming at was you made a replica set of the old 70s dice that your dad had.
Yep.
And you had those at the last one that I was at and sold them. So is that an overseas buy that gets shipped in?
Yeah, that was. So there's, interestingly enough, those dice were, I used Black Oak Workshop, which is an American designer, to kind of broker them, but he had them designed in China. So he did all the middleman work with the technical specs and how to do it. And they were a little bit of a chunky die. They were a little bit bigger than the Creative Productions 1972. And believe it or not, no one makes, or very few people make sharp-edged dice anymore. It's a very rare thing. And to be able to do that, it wasn't possible. So they're a rounded edge. I'm actually looking and working with somebody now to make an actual size, sharp-edged reproduction of the 1972 Creative Publications dice. So
holy cow.
Yeah, but out of modern stuff, they won't wear out as much, but the number pattern will be the same, the sizes will be the same, it'll have the sharp edges.
God bless you, Luke. God bless you.
Sign me up.
Yeah, I think they'll be beautiful as well. And the way to do that is they're actually going to probably hand pour them into silicone molds. Wow. So yeah, it's not the cheapest way of doing things, but you can get that sharp edge and be a lot better. But yeah, the dice thing, generally you're doing it overseas. And if you're doing it in the States, we just don't have the manufacturing that's going to be able to do that unless you're taking a standard die that's probably made in China, a blank that has whatever side blank, and then you laser etch something on there. That you can do here in the States. But otherwise, you're getting your blank manufactured somewhere else. It might be Poland. Who does dice in Poland?
Is that Q Workshop?
Q Workshop.
Yep.
So they did the GaryCon 6 dice, which Jim designed for me. And those turned out really cool. They had the demon face on them. Demon face logo is very nice. So that was Q Workshop. For the D4, we used ChessX, where they just took a blank and lasered on the interlocked GC for the 4. And for the D8, I did the same thing. I had a blank and I had someone etch it on there. And the 12-sider, or correction, 10-sider I made. You remember those. And then the 12-sider, I had Level Up dice do them. And that, because of GaryCon not happening and Level Up being really expensive, that didn't work out so well. I have a whole bunch of D12s, expensive D12s at that, sitting around. So my next dice set will probably be, for GaryCon, I don't know, we'll see when we do a dice set. It probably won't be 14, simply because it's been crazy and there's not a whole lot of cash in the coffers right now to go out on a limb. Yeah,
it's a tough environment for specialty dice.
Oh yeah, right now.
I just want to come in on dice with I decided to do dice myself and consulted Craig Zipsey at Black Oak Workshop, and Craig's first warning was dice are hard. Be sure you want to do this before you get in it. And unlike Luke, I didn't have the smarts to have Craig as a middleman. I took his advice and did it myself, and turns out dice are hard. I probably won't do dice again myself soon.
I've heard that from a number of people that have included dice. It was like back in the day when every Kickstarter said, hey, I'm going to offer miniatures. And then people started figuring out what an absolute nightmare that was. if it's not a specific miniatures Kickstarter. If you're writing a book and you're like, hey, I'm gonna throw in some specialty monsters, and it's like, okay, well, let's just talk about shipping, because that puts you in a whole different stratosphere.
Yeah, that
And,
shipping will kill you.
Yeah.
No media mail for dice.
Yeah, it doesn't qualify. So now your shipping has doubled or tripled. And if you don't account for that, surprise, you're bankrupt.
Yeah. And if you didn't say, oh, by the way, this only applies to the continental United States, not the guy in Nepal in Australia, you're also going to take it.
Right. Well, I mean,
the shipping that they changed.
There's a fantastic story that was actually before Zach's time at Frog God, when Razor Coast, when I was at Frog God, and we had to ship an entire pirate's chest to Australia, and it got lost. So then another one had to be shipped, and it was like I could have flown there for cheaper.
So $5,000 later.
Yeah. And it was all just because somebody wanted a pirate chest with some pirate keys and some pieces of 8 and all of this specialty stuff in a Kickstarter that was like, yeah, bad idea. But like Jim says, you're cutting tuition checks. You're learning. Sometimes you learn real slow, but you do in fact learn. Any other questions that are here?
Yes. I wanted to piggyback on something that was just said. I've been looking into doing things like print on demand with Ingram Spark and merchandise with Cafe Press. And I noticed they use the same price. The price they sell your products for is the same price they charge you. So if I was to buy my stuff from them to sell at conventions, the price, I'd have to charge a higher price at the convention than what you could get it online in order to make a profit.
Yep.
Until you order, I think right now,
so
English Spark is 500 units. Until you order that, there is no price break. You're absolutely correct. We had the same problem. I don't have an answer for you, except for
that's actually a very common problem in construction these days, because people can go to Home Depot and buy materials, and if you go to a contractor, the contractor is also buying from Home Depot to get materials. So yeah, you can get, unless you're buying in certain amounts of bulk, it is screwy.
Yeah.
It does.
What do you guys
more.
what do you guys recommend I do then in order to, I mean, should I continue to go through Cafe Press and Ingram Spark? And I mean, how, if they're going to charge the same amount for me as they do online, how am I going to make any money at selling stuff at convention?
An Ingram Spark, you can set the price on Ingram Spark higher if you want to, and they will make it that case. So I can go and say, okay, I'm only going to give take a 55%, not 35% on what the retailer cut would be. My recommendation is to go ahead and leave it kind of like it is. Sign the books you bring to conventions and explain, you can also get these online a little bit cheaper and you still get paid. You can all on cheaper, but give a signed book, have a reason why it's a little bit more valuable to convention, and not mess with that kind of business model yet, because that's a decision that you should be doing when you're worried about pushing, 700 titles a month, to the tune of 1,500 copies. Then just from the very beginning, make it more valuable for people at the convention, because I want to buy it from your convention. I don't want to buy it on Amazon if I'm going to pick it. You're actually going to make more sales there, and they'll go back and buy your other stuff. I highly recommend you just make it more valuable in person and use them, because the other options are so expensive. But that's just my take.
Yeah, if you sign a book and write an amusing anecdote in it, people love that. I mean, I do it all the time just because I like to mess around. So I'll write a little story in people's books and they're like, oh my God, this is fantastic. And I'm like, it was just a story. But
can you do the same thing with can you do the same thing with merch?
Not as much.
Conventions. Okay.
Not as much.
With the merch side, there's a couple different ones that you can use. Threadless will cut you a difference. Like if you order from Threadless, they won't add the retailer, like the markup on there. They'll give it to you at whatever the cost is. Same thing with Printful. You can do orders through Printful that are for you or for promotional, and then they just charge you the base cost, not the retail amount. So there's services that'll do that.
Yeah, and if you have a business license and you are reselling and you have all that paperwork, which is not something we are going to touch on here, then you can get a price break for certain places as well. That is a whole different investigation, and please don't take my advice on that.
What are you having made at Cafe Press anyway?
Well, I was looking at various type of merch, like T-shirts or hats or cups, things like that. You know.
Jim?
Well, I'm going to prove I can't get through one of these things without a rant. Stay away from Cafe Press.
Thank you. I didn't know if I wanted to back up.
It's all written into the small type of their end user agreement that once you upload an image to them, they own it now. So you've just given up your IP. And I learned this by deciding to use Cafe Press to produce some Marvin the Mage t-shirts years ago. Now you can go to Cafe Press, and if you search right, you can find Marvin the Mage women's thongs, Marvin the Mage beer glasses, lots of things I didn't create that have my IP on them, and I don't make a penny out of any of it. So don't do Cafe Press.
Thank you for letting me know that. You just saved me. You don't know how much you just saved me.
Well, I know I'm getting a thong
just
for NTX.
Cafe Press. Is Zazzle just as bad as Cafe Press?
I have no experience with Zazzle.
I'm not familiar, but I know that Redbubble is a similar situation.
Okay, where do you guys recommend? Is there a service that's like Cafe Press where they will sell your stuff online that won't take away your IP?
I would look at the agreement carefully just to be sure. But I believe threadless.com is pretty good.
I have some
and
stuff.
That's TheAADLESS.com.
Let's see. I'm going to type it in chat.
Sure.
I'm trying to visualize the spelling. It's just like thread with a less, like threadless.
Yep.
Luke got it in there.
Thank you so much.
That actually went to me, Luke.
Just saved me.
That's right. I was harassing Skeeter earlier. Sorry.
Yeah. Oh,
okay.
Ed got
Threadless.com.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Cool.
Yep. And then if
you
graduate to having a website where you sell stuff on your own website and you want to do third-party fulfilled stuff, Printful is very good. So, but they don't have their own separate store. You run it through your own WooCommerce thing. So when we get a little bigger,
right.
Printful is good.
Well, you just saved my bacon. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And you should make an okay profit on that. Like, $3, $4, $5 on something.
Right. Okay. If I wanted to make a board game, where would you recommend I have that printed? Are there any companies that are good for board games?
Yeah, I mean, there's who's the guy who did tabletop? JT Smith. He runs a small print shop in Madison that'll do board games. It's super expensive unless you're ordering like 200, 300 of them.
Yeah,
you print and play first. Print and play first. If you're going to do a board game, make sure they can go print it somewhere and play it. I would not recommend doing any kind of
don't buy board games in bulk. That way leads to madness.
But it touches on an issue that we haven't covered, which is it depends on what your purpose is. If you're one of these guys who wants to be a small publisher to get your stuff out there and to just have a presence, or maybe get stuff out there that leads to being hired by a company, your goal is to break even. Breaking even is not my goal. A portion of my living comes from what I'm doing. So I spreadsheet everything the best a Bachelor of Fine Arts can do it. I'm no MBA. And that's when you start. Ask me when my books are going to go into distribution to game shops. I can tell you exactly when that is, when my print runs reach 2,000 copies per unit. That's when what the math shows. And it's the same thing with what you're talking about. Board games are, you can't, there are POD board game companies that you can go to that are good for making a few playtest copies. But if you mass produce 100 or 200 of those for Kickstarter, you're going to if you do it so you don't lose money, you're going to end up with an overpriced Kickstarter that no one will bid on.
Right. Ed?
Hey, I have a question. I know in the indie comics, I've learned in indie comics that unless you have a good following and your book is well known, unless you have a name, that printing merch is not a good idea until you have a following. And I didn't know if is that the same with games as well? Because I have a whole bunch of stuff. I have a merch I've made of this great comic I made, and now nobody would buy it. Nobody would buy the book. And so I have a bunch of merch I made that no one will buy. I didn't know if that was the same thing as in games or not.
Yeah, you can totally screw up on games. Like my last Kickstarter, I thought a monster book would be a great seller, not for the rule set that I was selling it in. It's a different group. That's not what they're necessarily interested in.
Right.
So
I think you need to make a following first with your zine or your book, your game first, before you start making a bunch of t-shirts and mugs and a bunch of merch to sell, because you're going to be stuck with a bunch of stuff. If your thing doesn't go over well, you're going to be stuck with a bunch of merch that no one's ever going to want to buy.
And I'll make an even more radical suggestion before you go to a Kickstarter or a zine, is to start with a blog or a website, because that costs you nothing but the work, and you'll get your work out there. And sometimes if your stuff's good, the Dungeon Alphabet is an award-winning book that got Michael Curtis hired at Goodman Games, and it started out as a blog he was doing.
Yep.
Right.
Well,
to add on what Jim was saying is basically you just want to build your audience.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't explain. We've been doing a web comic for 5 years, so we have a following. So what we wanted to do was set up our own website, and then maybe through Threadless or something, sell merch online to go with a web comic. And we also wanted to produce a role-playing game and a board game that go with a web comic, but we wanted to do the merch first.
Well, I don't want to be harsh, but I just heard 4 businesses. So maybe it's time to examine which business you have that passion I was talking about at the beginning of this for, and focus on that. I mean, GaryCon has thousands of attendees, so it's part of their marketing and branding to do T-shirts and hats and dice.
Right. Okay.
Very limited edition print runs of things, just very small scale, might not be a bad option either. If you really do want to start pushing merch of some sort and you do have a following, then maybe just a very small set of something might be a good idea. You don't need to go overboard with a huge merchandising project.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Honestly, with the way things are now, you can, if you're doing your own website, you might want to just look and pay someone a couple bucks to set up WooCommerce in there and get the plugin that takes them to Printful. They fulfill everything. You set your own prices. It's pretty high quality stuff. You make the designs, you upload it. I think that's the way to go. You can order some things for your convention appearances. You know, a t-shirt's probably like $13, like a kind of a basic color t-shirt, one, front print, not that bad. So,
yeah, minimize your exposure and cover your ass. That is the takeaway.
Yeah. I still have some crap I'm trying to get rid of because I made the mistake of ordering a whole bunch of stuff because it was a great deal and it was a wonderful deal per unit. But guess what? If I'm lucky, we get 2,500, 2,800 people coming to GaryCon. I don't sell thousands of anything ever, except maybe those stadium cups. Actually, in aggregate, I sell. But yeah, if I have like 3,000 or something, it's too much.
Yeah.
I would also say that if you get on their mailing lists for these people that make the printing and whatnot, I have one of the best things I ever did was stickermule.com. And I will not order anything from them until they send me a text and say they have a sale on something that's 50% off. And then I'll order 50 stickers for $10 or something. It's ridiculous. So you might want to look out for like great deals like that, because stickers are awesome. People love stickers.
I had great success with Rockin' Monkey for stickers. Yeah, that's my SGP stickers that I've gotten. So
I don't know if did anyone ever get one of these Dungeoneer survival quills that I made for GaryCon 12?
You mean this one?
Yeah, these are $1. These are
brother did.
They're $1.05. You can sell them for $5 or $6 pretty easily. So they were on sale. They're on like a half sale or.
That was only $1.
$1.
Yeah, you owe me money.
Skeeter paid $50 for that.
I know. I paid
$75.
So you could put those pins into retail distribution.
You could.
Yeah, as long as there's a bunch of me's.
Yeah, as long as I think I don't know how often they're going to have that deal. I mean, I got it at that price. I don't know if I'll see it again. That was how they got me in the door. Like, oh, first-time customer, special deal for you.
Yeah, definitely look for deals if you're going to get merch. There are always seasonal deals. People are running specials. First timers, you get a discount. One thing I did, which is semi-sketchy, is bought part of an order, and then they sent me an email, hey, you get 25% off on your next order. And I'm like, okay, I will finish ordering with a bigger order. Not everybody does that, so you can't count on it, but it's worth a shot sometimes. So with that sketchy bit of advice, I'm going to start wrapping up. We're going to go around the horn. Everybody say their finals and goodbyes, just so everybody can get out of here on time. Zach Glazer, lead us off.
I will. I want everybody that's watching here or watch this later, if you really do have a passion for making a product, make it first for yourself. But if you want to make it great, other people will notice it if it really is great. And if it needs to be distributed, use your networks, ask us questions, ask everybody questions that you meet. Do a great job, because everybody making stuff makes it better for all of us.
Jim Wampler.
I want to flip it around and just express massive gratitude that there are such things as GaryCon and goddammit Zach panels and all the people on them. Every time I'm in one of these, I just feel lucky to be here. There's in the back of my head, there's a 15-year-old me going, yes. So thanks for having me.
Elissa Fadden.
I'm actually going to echo Jim. Jim, much love to you, man. I'm having an absolute blast, and this is just day one for me. I feel like a year without conventions, and I'm beginning to get that tingle of family around me again, and it's giving me goosebumps. I love every single panelist right here with me right now. Edwin, that includes you, my friend, and everyone that joined today. Thank you so much.
Ed Bickford.
I just want to thank you guys for including me. This is my first panel at a game con, and I appreciate everyone on this panel. You guys are awesome. I appreciate everyone showing up. And anybody out there, you guys have any questions about art or anything, you just give me a holler. I'm on Facebook as Ed Bickford, or on Twitter as Edwin Bickford. And what else am I on? Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I'm on Instagram as well. So
and TikTok, Ed. TikTok.
Oh boy.
No TikTok.
OnlyFans?
No Snapchat. I told you, I'm making that site, Skeeter. I told you.
All right, my bad. I didn't mean to leak that.
If you have any questions about art or anything, just give me a holler. I'll always talk to anybody.
Wonky.
I just wanted to thank everybody for coming in attendance and listening to us talk. This has been a really enlightening experience for me, and hopefully it was for you guys as well. And I want to just express my immense gratitude I have to my friends and mentors who are here on this panel with me. I couldn't have been here without you guys, and much love to all of you.
And the man with his name on the convention, Luke Gygax.
Well, thanks for including me. Thanks for inviting me to participate. Hopefully I had a couple words that made sense to people. A lot of experience here on the panel. You guys are out here making it happen. I do want to note that I have a couple more artists to steal, so I have made those notes. So Zach, just,
I'll get you, Luke.
And yeah, thanks everybody for sitting, asking questions and hanging out with us. I appreciate it.
Thank you, everybody. I'm Skeeter Green. When we're in the real and at game conventions, come up and ask questions, talk, let's chat. Buy Zach lunch. He loves to take pictures of food. Thank you for this time. Thank you, Luke, for having GaryCon. Thank you to everyone who showed up. Thank you to Alla Banana, who hid in the crowd because I want to embarrass the shit out of her because she's great. Thank you, everybody. This has been a blast. Game.
Yes, thank you, everybody.
Go forth and conquer.
I'll get you, Luke.
Thank you all. Thank you all for your good advice.
You're welcome.
You're welcome.
Okay, I think we're done recording. If I end this meeting, it's going to kick everybody out. So,
yeah.
I didn't know that's how that worked.
Yep,
if you're the host and you quit.
Yeah, it'll boot everybody. So we are, I think we're